Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Day by Donald J. Trump. Folks, this is all of the truth at hand for Canada, the 51st state, or the economic destruction of our country for all peoples in this country. And it happened last night. It's limited in the news this morning. They talk about the 10% tariffs on softwood lumber. It's a big dispute in the WTO that Canada's been in many times. And of course, they beat America in the WTO every time. And why is that? Well, it's a Palace of Nations old world system. It's from the time of classes of people, a superior class, fascist dictators, autocrats, yes, kings, queens, prime ministers, even presidents. There's republics there. Folks, the United States of America has done something at its regional level no other country has. And I've tagged John Carpe. I see you're there, Benjamin Ebley. I've tagged Jonathan Bahai, Jonathan LaBelle, Ian Bachman, Suzette Powder, all First Peoples from a range right across Canada, okay? And it's Truth and Reconciliation Day. What did Trump do last night? What is America quoting? The new softwood lumber tariffs and the 25% tariffs on cabinets, furniture, all of it from Canada. And if you think this is small, you're wrong. It's all large. And it all derives from a subsidy the Crown gives to all of their loyal friends. These are Crown corporations, private entities who, guess where all hail from, folks? All of that of the 9 kingdoms out of the European Union, UK, and Commonwealth. Yeah. Against the United States of America in a world where America wasn't the power. America codifies sovereignty for the people of America and for all Indians in America. 2 equal citizens, American Indian citizens. Those are the only 2 types of equal people in the United States. And people will say, oh, wait, and Americans, Canadians alike. But let me finish. For all American Indians who codify a constitution of we, the American Indian people, just like all 50 states have to in the United States of America. You see, Canadians and anyone in the world outside of Americans, there's a precious thing called sovereignty that really does exist in only one country I know of in the world, and that's the United States. It's done at the state level. Now, me and Benjamin Ebley, unfortunately, get a lot of activity from Americans and a lot of posts. Ben secured a viral post of mine on elections and my spoiled ballot of the 51st state, which is beautiful. But what was sad, and I think it's hard for Benjamin Ebley too, and myself and others, is that what should go viral is the idea that the number one natural right in the United States, aka your sovereignty, is centered on a centerpiece called property rights. These are real property rights for all Americans and all American Indian citizens. How do you become an American Indian citizen? You must have your nation codify a constitution the same as the 50 states of the Union. So far, 155 nations exist along side by side of the 50 states of the Union. Nations within the nation. Do you know how much land those American Indians have? 1/50 of America. Yeah. 6 million folks out of the 320 million total, 21 plus million people, 6 million American Indians hold 1/50 of America, an equal share of the states. Now, there's more settlements to do yet. For lots of American Indian nations, we see those. Doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican. Trump just did another one in Alaska. Just settled out those bands who codified we the people, the American Indian citizens, and cemented property rights for all those American Indian citizens. America accepts them. They've been doing this work for 105 years. Constitutionally bound, can't be undone without extreme supermajorities. And Americans don't want to. It's better the American Indian citizens have their own sovereignty, their own self-government at an equal state level to all the states of the Union, and they have codified private property where they generate their real own revenue. No middleman, no dehumanization, no reduction in how the land is used. They get resources, corporate rights to build businesses, infrastructure, industry, commercial, they're residential. I went through Montana, one big nation. I have all of Indian country states to go through. I've done a few, but not all. Montana was an eye-opener for me. I went to the first ever Indian McDonald's I've ever seen in my life. I drove through a fairly big reserve, not one of the bigger reserves and certainly not one of the wealthiest, but it blows every Indian reserve in Canada out of the water. There is no comparable Indian reserve that I've toured in all of Canada that compares to what I've seen in Montana as I headed back to Alberta. And I wanted to see that big Indian reserve that is equatable to me to your average Alberta small town. All the businesses there, yes, there's some shut-ins, but there's functioning Indian businesses at the equatable level to your average Alberta town. It blew me away. And there are much, much bigger nations to go through, all through the Indian states of the Union. But sovereignty starts with codified property rights formed by the people in natural law. This is foreign to everybody. And I tag John Carpe because there are no constitutions in Canada at the provincial or territorial level. So Canadians have no clue that this exists. They know nothing of the 50 states, and they certainly don't know anything about the 155 codified nations, Indian nations, who have their own constitutions, run their own policing, their own municipal government, their own state-level organization, going all the way up and including their version of state trooper on their lands, on their reserves. They even register their own cars. They have registries, insurance companies, home insurance companies, banking. Yeah. And there is none of this in Canada, never has been, and there is nothing in the Constitution or under the Indian Act of Canada to allow for any of that. Now, the provinces get all that without a constitution. They get all of it. Almost the same powers of a state, minus all natural rights, which means Canadians, especially Albertans and Quebecois, you have no sovereignty in Canada. There is no academic, no constitutional expert in Canada to dispute what I'm telling you. Canadians, you have no sovereignty. Zero, zip, none whatsoever. Never have, never will, until you codify provincial constitutions. And for the First Peoples, you will be always under the boot. Never to have all of your human and civil rights, meaning you exist dehumanized in Canada. Whether you like it or not, that's how Canada rolls. That's the design of Canada, not America. Don't ever confuse it with America, because America did away with that over 120 years ago, 105 years ago, they created Indian sovereignty for real. If you codify that, you can have it all. You can have it all, and you will get codified because it's done at the state level, and it's also done at the Indian nation level, that you have to codify these natural rights for all the people, or America doesn't recognize you. So when folks are reaching out saying, F America, F this, F that, you're delusional. You're delusional as a Canadian, and you're delusional as a first person. You've already affirmed through programming that you give up your sovereignty. You have none. Now, self-determination. If you don't have the equivalent state constitution, which again, all Canadian subjects in a province or territory do not have, and absolutely under the Indian Act, whether you're ceded, unceded, whether you're Métis or Inuit, whether you're named or numbered in that supposed ceded, you've got none of that. There will be no self-determination and no self-government. There's none. Canadians, on the flip side of that, they don't get any of that the states provide in their lengthy, massive state constitutions, because that's where the American people have their sovereignty, not with the federal government. It's with the 50 states of the Union. And their self-government, their self-determination starts with the state. Without the state, you don't have any sovereignty, self-government, or self-determination through the federal government. The federal government of the United States exists to protect all of that for each and every one of the 50 states, and for the 155 American Indian nations who've codified all that. Check mark, just like what is statehood. American Indians have been doing it for a long, long time. Still many more to do, and the federal government works with it. Come on now. You can't be a dictator over these people. They're Americans too. They're equal American Indian citizens. We won't do that to them. You will enshrine those rights for them. If you do that, and each nation does that, you're going to get a whole pile of settlements. And there's still a lot to do. But America's made massive progress like no other nation in the world. Canada has done zero. Not only just for the First Peoples on this day, Truth and Reconciliation, but also for every Canadian in a province and territory. You have none of that. You exist to serve your master. And you do that. And all those rights that you're supposed to be promised were handed to your provincial and territorial governments that you elect every 4 years. And of course, the Indians elect their chief and council in the same system under the Indian Act. And none of those rights are ever bestowed upon Canadian First Peoples or Canadians at all. And Canadians think somehow that the glory of America is ours on 9% of Canada, half of which is owned by those elites that you elect every 4 years and those they appoint. They own half of the very limited land that's available to you. You are not allowed, according to the constitutional acts of Canada, to have anything more than the United Kingdom or the equivalent of Florida. We are 41 million people today. For example, Florida, the state of Florida, is 23 million people. Our density is nearly double theirs. That's why Canada's land values are through the roof, asinine, astronomical, and the housing crisis and all of it. Because the government keeps 91% of the rest of the land as crown land. And Indians in Canada, the same exact peoples as United States American Indians, our First Peoples, are placed on 332% of Canada. That's their reserve. That's all they get. All of the bullshit you hear on TV, this is Treaty 6 territory. Oh, it's also Métis numbered territory. Oh, it's also, right? But the Crown, what it really is all entirely Crown land, owned and operated by wealthy elites from all over the world of the 9 kingdoms of the old world order, League of Nations, who ran the world when USA was not a power. All of these NGOs established this over Canada. It's called colonial rule, a satellite of these 9 kingdoms to be raped, pillaged, and plundered, and to continue the class structure. And 90% of Canadians exist this way. Stupidly watching American TV, believing in their minds that they're American, that every freedom America has, Canadians have. They do not, and neither do the First Peoples. In fact, they have it even worse because there are no civil or human rights for any First Peoples in Canada. They're not granted that. They are dehumanized legally. It's in the WTO today. Donald J. Trump put 10% tariffs on softwood lumber out of BC and said because of the Crown lands, because of the subsidy, because it's stolen. There's no treaties there, and Canada removed arbitrarily in the 50s, removed the Jay Treaty, a US-UK treaty signed. And if you ever want to know about US-UK treaties over Canada, there are 14 more. And you know what they go through? Canada, no, America, evil Donald Trump, you brought it up, don't end those treaties. But Canada arbitrarily ended the Jay Treaty, meaning defines all American codified Indian citizens, American equal to American citizens. Canada says, no, we ripped that treaty up. That's not for us. Those are savages, and they're banned from Canada. We don't recognize them as citizens. Trump looks at it and he says, so Canada rips up the Jay Treaty, one of the oldest treaties, and then they tell us that one of the oldest over the land, that can be thrown away. Keep America out. But all the subsequent land treaties for British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Quebec, Ontario, all of Atlantic Canada up to Labrador, all of that is treaty that America can rip away. Big swaths and chunks out of those provinces. The Great Wall of America and then some. That's what it was created and crafted for. Stop American expansionism. Because, and every American should know this, and Canadians, if you don't know, you better read history. These 13 colonies that rebelled, part of the rebelling was that the UK said, this is all our Crown land. You got independence, but you're going to stay in those 13 colonies. And America went. There's been lots of wars all the way through the 1800s, all the way up to the 1900s. Treaties signed for the 49th parallel, these rulers using rulers to draw lines. And Donald J. Trump sitting there right now today puts a tariff on the softwood lumber, which is basically land that is Americans' land, at least American Indians for sure, which would make it American land. There would be an equal settlement there, meaning the First Peoples would get probably about 500 times more land in British Columbia than they have now. Canadians have no idea about any of these things, but you have 14 US-UK treaties that defines our borders, that in today's day and age, the USA has no rhyme or reason to hold on to those treaties. Because again, on this day, Truth and Reconciliation, Canada threw away the Jay Treaty. They said, no, UK, we're not going to honor that anymore. We're arbitrarily getting rid of it. So if you're America, the might, the military maximum of America, and you're sitting there going, so Canada says that treaty's garbage. Canada says that the government owns all these vast lands. They don't acknowledge USA's people at all. And they say, we're going to sell those trees pennies on a dollar to all of our friends, which is a subsidy, a massive subsidy against private American Indian citizens, private American citizens trying to do the same in the USA. And you want USA to honor that. This is just the start on Truth and Reconciliation Day for all Canadians and all Canadian First Peoples. You have no idea. And I love John Carpe, but he's dead wrong on this, on property rights. The idea that is the first and foremost highest right before the state constitution is every American's natural right to have property made available to them, all American Indians too. That's why they get an equal share when they codify. And this doesn't exist in Canada. You think it's normal? I'll say to any Canadian, do you think it's normal that less than 4.5% of Canada is available to be purchased as private property by 41 million people, and that over 2.5 million Indians sit on 0.332% of Canada? You think that's normal? And it's all about money. Taxpayers pay, rent a lease to the Indian Chief and Council, pay a lease to the Government of Canada and subsequent provincial governments or territorial governments who manage the whole thing, who take their lion's share. It's called thievery. And Donald J. Trump sees it. And God bless, more than Donald J. Trump, he's relatively new to seeing this. It's actually at the 50 state level where the American state governments are waking up to this at an explosive rate, because it's in their constitution, and they're starting to look at Canada. They're calling for investigations from all of these NGOs, COP28, the Environmental Protection Agency, investigate the provinces and the wildfires, the Crown Lands, BC Softwood Lumber, the Crown Lands. What is this, Indian Wars? What is this, savage Indian people? What is this 0.332% of Canada? What's this, Canadians are only on 4.5%, and everybody's placed out systematically as a great wall against American expansionism? All the US-UK treaties signed are to limit America's expansion to the north, to all these great lands, to free it to the First Peoples and all American citizens equally as your number one, first, and highest right before the Constitution. You won't find any State of the Union that doesn't enshrine this. And literally, in majority, as Benjamin Ebley knows too, property is higher than the Constitution. It's a natural right. All men are born created equal and have an equal right to. It's part of your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, codified at the state level, higher than the Constitution. Those are the exact words in nearly all 50 state constitutions and a lion's share of the 155 American Indian Nation constitutions. So I'm sorry, on this day, you wake up, you wise up, or you go down the toilet, and we're going down the toilet. You can't stay on this unsustainable system of mass immigration, mass murder, basically. And Canadians say Donald J. Trump and Republicans are the bad guys. I say today, God bless America, God bless Donald J. Trump, and God bless the 50 states of the Union and all those state-level Republicans with vast knowledge at the sovereignty level of America, at the state level of America, bringing these truths to light and hammering the Trump administration with it, educating that state level. And just so everybody knows, Donald J. Trump, New York, Donald J. Trump has been enshrined in a more Canadian model than any of the other states of the Union. I hate to say it, even California, its constitution is more American than the New York state constitution, meaning New York has a lot of the old world, a lot of migration from Canada, especially in its judicial system. It's probably the worst judicial district system in the United States of America. But it is not majority. It's not even close. And it certainly doesn't match so many other states, especially all the Indian states of the Union. All of those have the greatest of we the people independent judiciaries, for sure in the world, but also in America. And that came from the American Indian. That came from that Western development. It came from their statehoods, a more advanced model than their older counterparts. And I'm not knocking all of the original 13. I'm not. Massachusetts is awesome. Lots are awesome. Florida's awesome. I'm just saying some of these even have new advanced judicial models, power of the people, especially in court action and enforcing it against politicians, like nowhere in the world. There's nothing like that in the world, let alone of all America. There's 6 states that have super advanced models, and you can thank the American Indians for that. America is something else. And today, folks, you need to share this video. You got to get this epic truth out that so many, especially in Canada, in a mass majority, don't know and certainly don't understand. And they've been brainwashed into believing the baloney. This is a lot, majority of First Peoples. It's an absolute majority of Canadians who are under a whip and seemingly don't know it. But, think about it. How is it a friend of mine, and I shouldn't say because it's his business, just bought a house in Minnesota, $49,000. Acres, it's his, double detached garage, $49,000. The equivalent in northern Alberta, 6 hours from Edmonton, is well over $450,000. And it's certainly a rum shanty shack. But it's on 3 acres, right? It's the land value, which is 3/4 of the price for a freezing cold, isolated community, high crime rate, high drugs, far, far from major services. That's about the best you're going to get in Canada. That's how pathetic it is. And if Americans don't shake their head, they should. First people should shake their head. You never get land settlements. Barely any kind of land settlements. It's always money. Money that can't buy you any land. I know a settlement, I'm not going to say who, they got a major settlement, and you know what? What did it buy you? A small house in the United States. You can't even buy a house in Canada. You got no land with that money because it ain't worth the ink that prints it. And that's where we're at. So dehumanized, so devalued. Canadian and absolutely First Peoples. It's sick, it's depraved. On this day, Truth and Reconciliation Day, share Donald Trump's major works. He hammered BC like no other, and go read the WTO and the American claim against Crown land. And when you dig deeper, you find out all of the extinct nations in Canada that no longer exist because Canada wiped them out in BC Indian Wars that are still raging today. Yeah, they're raging today. They don't call it that. They just call it unceded. It means those without a treaty, those who have to fight for their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, have to fight for property rights, even though it's their property. But the Canadian government is such a coward such an evil, evil old world order genocidal maniac. They can't even be public about it, can't call it for what it is, and Canadians just turn a blind eye. I don't see it, it's not happening. Do you ever ask what these things mean? Do you ever ask America why they don't have any of these issues? Do you ever look at America and wonder, why is there no unceded land in America? The answers are all there. Americans know it. The GOP knows it. The beautifulest thing is many states of the Union know it. Many of those are reaching out to the President of the United States. And now he's fighting in that WTO, one of those global evils. Same office, same building as the WEF, as the WHO, as the IOM, International Organization of Migrants, that was responsible for all the illegal immigration to America. When Donald J. Trump says he's going to investigate all these NGOs, like what happened with Charlie Kirk, attack on a church, and who's funding all these groups, it's going to lead back to all of them. He already knows, but it's having to prove it, having to do the investigation. And they're doing it. And continually they're hammering Canada day after day, week after week, month after month. And they're going to continue to crush Canada down, to break the Canadian, to break the First Peoples, who are brainwashed in supermajority, institutionalized, no different than much of America's history, what they had to deal with Texas, why they went the road they did, why they had to bankrupt them, because they needed to learn a lesson. And if you think Canada's magical crown, those you elect super savior Mark Carney is going to fix this. Mark Carney's only fixing to fill his pockets and the pockets of all his friends. Because again, this is the Titanic system called Canada, where it's first, second, third class, and then there's the Boilermakers in the boiler room. They're all gone. So's all the third class. Because while the third class is ordered to shut the doors at the very bottom of the vessel on the Boilermakers to give time for them to escape, the second class is shutting the doors on the third class, and so on and so on. So they're all gone anyway. So too is what Mark Carney's doing. He's the first class. His friends, they're at the top of the ship. They just walk out, taking their time, whistling away, bags of money on their back, jump on a lifeboat. There was lots of time, could have saved lots of people, but then the bag of money gets divided. Oh, we don't want to do that. We're out of here. That's all that's happening. It doesn't matter in Canada. Don't confuse this with Republican or Democrat. In Canada, it does not matter. Liberal, Conservative, NDP, Bloc, Green, People's Party of Canada, all the provincial parties. We can go through all of them, their versions, their colors, their innuendos. They're all one crown, and they're all for the first class. Bags of money on their shoulder, ready to sell all of you out. They'll just walk away with all the money they harvested from you. Their single source of fraud, laundering, dehumanization, subjugation. Your life gets incredibly harder. Theirs only gets better. That's my video on Truth and Reconciliation Day. Share it out there. Understand real property rights that do not exist in Canada. There is so much for all of us, so much more that we could even share with all the Americans in the United States of America. Heck, we would need that to develop all that. And the wealth generation, just like from the 13 to the 50, it's another golden age boom. Or we can stay as the Great Wall of Canada against American expansionism. We're better than America. Meanwhile, your kids can't afford a home, can't afford to live, can't move out and live on their own. What's their future? And then, never mind, Canadians aren't even producing anymore. Now we need mass immigration to exist. That's not normal. There's nothing normal about where Canada is and where it's going with the Crown. Never has been, never will, and it only gets worse and worse, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Slow, incremental, but those incrementals are getting steeper and steeper. How Canadians don't see it, I don't know. Look at your federal debts, exponential. Look at your provincial debts, exponential. Look at your municipal debts, exponential. Look at your household debt, exponential. Look at your corporate debts, exponential. We can crucify the United States of America. We can point a finger like every dumb shit elbows up asshole in the air Canadian or first person from Canada does. Say, look at that garbage country, United States. Look at their federal debt. Oh yeah? Add up all comparable debt loads, and you blow them out of the water. So if you think United States is in trouble, oh, government shutdown, America's going down the toilet, you're blind. You're brainwashed. And if you don't feel it and you don't look at why does a house cost on average 10 times more than the equivalent in the United States in geographical terms, you're out there. You're out to lunch. You're gone. These markers of inflation given to you by the same NGOs that hate America, that tell you Commonwealth good, America bad. Look at all the economic markers according to Oxford. Well, we'll calculate inflation, but we won't calculate wages because Canada will lose. If we did those together, Canada's in the red, USA's in the green. Don't show that. Just show the markers that paint the Oxford picture, ignoring the truth and reality in front of your face. But Canadians love that. Lie to me, and First Peoples, lie to me. Tell me what I want to hear. It's sick, it's deranged, it's maddening. Anyhow, folks, that's my video on this day, Truth and Reconciliation Day. Donald J. Trump's commitment to it, beautiful. If First Peoples and Canadians ever want to see massive prosperity, the only way is the American model as a 51st state. Private property alone becomes explosive. Everybody has a chance at prosperity. Not only Canada, but all Americans too. To right so many wrongs. We could be such a beautiful country as North America, where more than 60% of North America, Canada, USA, remains unavailable to anybody. Does that make sense to anybody when we're dealing with nearly 370 million people? That we need to adopt a European density so everybody lives like shit, like Europe? In civil law socialism, fascism, or constitutional monarchy? Dictatorship? No thanks. Not me. It shouldn't be you. Share. Get the video out there. Educate. This one's huge. It can't be ignored. Bye now.